You may notice I'm wearing an unusual shirt today. This is my new garb for the Glasgow Tigers Speedway team. And I've recently started going back to Speedway after many years following football. But here I am with my famous Glasgow Tigers t-shirt on, and they had a fantastic night on Friday when team captain Chris Harris was injured in a severe crash in the first heat of a 15-heat meeting on Friday night. Now, everyone thought at the time, and I thought at the time, that Chris was unlikely to get back on the bike after that. But after a dramatic 15-minute set of treatment, there he was back on the bike to rerun the race, and went on to chalk up 4 victories in quick succession. He would have had a full house had it not been for an engine failure in Heat 13. There was a lot of drama that night, including one incident with the opposition. This was the Scunthorpe Scorpions when there was a collision on turn 3 involving one of their riders who appeared to have accidentally or deliberately, I don't know, come into contact with one of our replacement riders, causing a big pile-up involving 3 riders. Eventually the race was restarted and the Scunthorpe rider was disqualified amid heated arguments with the judges just shortly after that. So it was an evening of very high drama and a famous victory, in fact, for the Glasgow side, who went on to take the victory by a narrow margin. But it was nail-biting stuff, and frankly, everybody coming out of that stadium afterwards was wrung out. But it's nice to see the Glasgow Tigers still up at the top, lying in 5th place in the championship. So that was my Friday night, but let's talk about what's happening at the moment. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I've made a return to X, formerly known as Twitter, and basically just refuting a lot of nonsense coming from unionist accounts. Now, one of the things I've noticed, and you've probably noticed this yourself if you actually inhabit X for any amount of time, is there's been a large number of troll accounts appearing online challenging any Inde-Car comments at all. Now, you can always tell a troll account because, for one thing, they usually don't have many followers. They have a very generic looking photograph at the top of their profile, something like a tranquil scene in the Bahamas or something like that, or a holiday picture. They don't have any personal data, they don't have any family or friends, and in fact on a couple of occasions they even say things like they don't have any friends. And on one occasion, one of the troll accounts said, not a troll account. So we can pretty much guarantee it was a troll account. Anyway, I've had a week of blocking these annoying trolls, but they are simply manufactured troll accounts, which are used by the British state to try and cause division amongst us. Anyway, the best thing to do with them is just simply block them. Make sure you recognise them as trolls, flag them up to everyone else, and then block. So why are they attacking Inde-Car? Well, could be because they know that Salvo is preparing an international legal representation to the International Court of Justice in support of Scotland's historic right to self-determination. Now, if it wasn't worrying them so much, and they were absolutely certain that there was no way the International Court of Justice would find in Scotland's favour, these bot accounts wouldn't necessarily appear at all, because there wouldn't be any need for them. They wouldn't have any fear that we were going to win this legal case. But I think the fact that they're scared about it and they're going to the enormous trouble and expense of inventing all of these fake accounts shows that there's something going on there. But it's not the only something that's going on. Many of my supporters have been tweeting on X recently about the parallels between Northern Ireland and Scotland in terms of their right to decide whether they remain in the Union or not. As you may know, thanks to the Good Friday Agreement, the United Kingdom has agreed that the people of Northern Ireland every 7 years will be entitled to a border poll to decide whether or not they still want to remain in the Union or if they favour reunification with the Republic of Ireland. Now that sounds on paper like a wonderful arrangement, and you might think, well, why can't Scotland have that? But before you start thinking that, just remember one thing. That is that despite the fact that the British government has agreed that there should be the opportunity for the people of Northern Ireland to have this vote every 7 years, its actual its actual event, the event of holding the vote, is still held up by a British veto. That means that the Northern Ireland Secretary, as the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, he's a minister in the cabinet, has to okay this. So the United Kingdom still has a veto over even this 7-year interval about having a border poll in Northern Ireland. So despite the fact that it looks like the people of Northern Ireland have something which we don't have, which is the ability to have a referendum, a binding one, every 7 years on whether we remain in the Union or not, they actually have to ask permission. They have to wait until the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland says it's okay. So as usual, the United Kingdom, in its normal way of doing things, offers something with one hand and takes it away with the other. It leaves the decision making not with the people of Northern Ireland themselves, but with whoever happens to inhabit the role of Northern Ireland Secretary at the time. And I'm pretty certain that there's no way that a Northern Ireland Secretary for the United Kingdom is ever going to give permission for this. Simply because if it looks like the people of Northern Ireland might want to reunify with the South, there's no way the British state could possibly allow that vote to take place, because they don't want to lose it. In the same way that they don't want to give Scotland another referendum for exactly the same reasons. And that's why I think the issue of Salvo's new challenge, its legal challenge in the international courts, is far more of a threat to the UK than any potential referendum or 7-year border poll, because they can't control what international courts decide, because it's a panel of judges from all over the place who are completely neutral to all intents and purposes. They don't have a horse in the race in this particular case, and so they can make their decision based on the facts. And the one thing that the international community has never had from the United Kingdom is the facts of Scotland's true nature within the Union, our real status. And as I mentioned in previous programmes, Scotland's real status in the Union is it is not a voluntary participant in the Union. We were forced into the Union, and then we were forced to stay in the Union for 300 years. And the only time we got the opportunity to vote on it, and this happened only twice incidentally, once in 1979 when we were offered the chance for Home Rule, which was basically Devo Max. The people of Scotland voted in majority for it, and then the British state decided that the turnout wasn't high enough, and therefore, even though we had a majority for it, they weren't going to give us it. So that was the first time we were given the opportunity to vote on it. Fast forward to 2014, we get the opportunity to do it again, thanks to a non-binding referendum agreed with the United Kingdom, but with Alex Salmond placing a proviso on it called the Edinburgh Agreement, which meant that if the vote was yes, then the United Kingdom would permit Scotland to leave the Union. And that was unusual at the time, because the United Kingdom normally would not have acceded to that kind of condition. And when it came to the crunch, 2 days before the vote, when they were losing and the yes vote had already exceeded 50%, they suddenly introduced the vow. They changed the offer. They changed it to you can have Devo Max, and the famous vow was issued during the Purdah period. Now, the Purdah period in any vote is a time at which neither side is allowed to introduce any new proposition or new legislation or new offer to the voters. That was clearly broken, and at the point where that happened, that entire referendum should have been called off and rerun under a whole set of different rules. However, that never happened, as we know. So we are where we are. We're not going to be given another referendum, and the only way we can leave the Union is to get the okay of the international courts and all the other countries outside of the UK. Now, that takes control away from the United Kingdom of the entire process, and that's why they're threatened by it. And that's why people like me and others who are posting about Salvo's work are being heavily attacked by troll accounts. So that will go on. Incidentally, Salvo has historically been sabotaged in various ways online, most notably their sign up for the Liberation Scot website, which allows people to sign up to support this activity, was sabotaged by the United Kingdom, who created over 300 fake sign-up pages, spoof accounts, so that people would be so frustrated in trying to find the real page that they would eventually give up. And I don't think that's going to be the end of UK interference online. So if you do try to sign up to Salvo or to Liberation Scotland, you might be better doing it in the post, actually physically sending in your application that way. If that's the case, there are ways of doing that. So I think in the round, looking at everything that's happening just now, you'll notice that it's gone pretty quiet in terms of SNP's activities with fighting for independence, and that's to be expected because they lost pretty heavily in the general election, lost a lot of seats, and they're now having to circle the wagons and reconstitute their party. But unfortunately, I don't think the SNP will be able to deliver independence, no matter how well we do in the next general election at Holyrood. That will require there to be the right to self-determination established first. And that's why Salvo's operation at the moment is so important. And it's also why so many other overseas independence campaigners working at other countries are joining the team, if you like. They're joining this network of contacts, newspapers, magazines, television stations, radio stations, and other outlets across the EU and beyond, who all have their own channels, their own online publications, who will put out this information. And that again is a threat to the UK, because they cannot control the press in other nations, at least certainly not to the extent they do here. And in one case, one of the major titles, UK newspaper titles, their overseas edition on Europe, is also one of these potential avenues that we can use to get the message out, because we have people in place all over the European Union. So at the moment, I can't say too much about what's going on. I can only hint, and I can only give you the broad brushstrokes. But big moves are being made on everybody's behalf in Scotland to reinstate Scotland's right to self-determination with the International Court of Justice, eventually the UN, Council of Europe, and other big international bodies who need to know the facts. And right at the moment, they think that we volunteered to be in this union and gave up our right to self-determination. And that's how the unionists are fighting this in their troll accounts as well. So we need to establish this beyond doubt. Once that's done, and the cat's out of the bag, then there's no way that the United Kingdom can stuff all this back under the rug. They can't sweep it away and hope that nobody notices it. So from me today, that's it really from Inde-Car. I just wanted to remind you of the current state of play. There is not a great deal of positive news coming out at the moment, but it is still the silly season, the holiday season here. So news on a political front is a bit thin on the ground. Anyway, that's all I have for you today on Inde-Car, but remember to keep the faith, and also remember that there are people working on your behalf. They're just not politicians. Anyway, I'll see you on the next edition of Inde-Car. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this channel everywhere you can, and I'll see you on the next edition of Inde-Car. Bye for now.